Yes, welcome back. Akande joins us next here. Former presidential aide, good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
So, minimum wage, living wage, national grid, shutting down. Those are some of the famous phrases this week
yeah.
that made the rounds. And even though they are back with that, I think they call them the tripartite committee, trying to see when negotiations continue today. I think they said by 2 p.m., so to speak. So who knows how all of this will pan out. But give us your impression of how this is progressing or otherwise.
Yeah. Well, I think that the intervention, I think the presidential intervention last week to give a directive to the Minister of Finance to crunch the numbers is a positive indication, that the president wants to take a closer look at the problem himself. Now, the other question would have been that I would have expected that right from the beginning of the negotiation, the federal government team ought to have the numbers already, right from the get-go, because that would have been the basis for the federal government team to show what is possible and what is not possible to the labor side. So while it's a good thing that the president said, look, give me the numbers, one would have expected that everybody already had the numbers, and the negotiation is on the basis of numbers. Now, having said that, I think the other thing to say is that, look, this idea of whether state governments or businesses cannot pay a living wage is something that we all should rise as a people to condemn. There's a business that cannot pay a living wage is not a business. A state government that cannot pay a living wage should not be called a state government. Some things are just basic. If we say it's a living wage, that means that is how people can live. So if we can't go below a living wage. And again, the president was the one that gave us that clarity when he was campaigning and said, look, I'm not just going to be in the business of a minimum wage. We will make it a living wage. So it's important for us to stop this narrative of whether they can pay or not. They can pay. State governments can pay. I mean, look at the report that just came out, yesterday about the fact that in 3 months, some of the state governors have spent close to ₦1 billion just for entertainment. Just for entertainment. So why are we allowing them to say that they can pay? They can pay. Everybody has to look at their situation. If you need to cut off a number of things, cut it off and pay the people a living wage. It is how we treat people at the lowest level that shows our humanity or lack of it.
Okay, so 2 things pop up there, because over the years, ever since, maybe 3, 4, 5 years, when Labour had asked for a certain amount, many states didn't pay.
Yeah.
In fact, it was a couple of weeks ago that some states were saying, well, okay, we'll try and see if we can pay 30,000 naira. And of course, Labour thought this must be a joke. But the second part is, if Edo State is saying we'll pay 70,000 naira,
right.
So perhaps that fits into your narrative, which then says they should be able to take a cue from how is it that Edo State is able to ensure that that is the case. Other states should be able to feed in to that same
scenario. Yeah, because you see, what it seems to be happening, and this is not a problem of just the Tinubu administration. This is a problem that has been around for a long while. So this is not saying this is just a problem of one administration. What seems to happen is that there's a lot of bad governance that has gone on in our country, regardless of who was in charge. And oftentimes, it is the poor people, it is the low-level people that take the short end of the stick. Now, that would have been easy to tell as a story if you also saw the same level of austerity by the high and the mighty. But you don't see that. You don't see them suffering in any way. You don't see them making any kind of sacrifice. And every time they say, oh, look, you guys have to sacrifice, we're not going to be able to pay this because there's problem. No. The time has come for us. And good thing, the president was the one that gave us this hint. Living wage. Good thing. The time has come for us to sort it out. And we can sort it out.
Can it compel states?
Now, so, yeah, to the other point. So when we had the 30,000 naira, this was a law. It was a law. It has to be a law. So we need to go after the governors who are not paying. Well, it's because it's the same political elites, and those guys get along regardless of what we say, especially when the people who are involved don't keep their eye on the ball. If the law says that you should pay a minimum wage, and you have 18 states who don't pay the minimum wage, something should happen. There should be a consequence.
That's the thing. So what can happen? Because the easy will tell you, don't forget, state governors have got immunity. So how should that be approached?
Well, it's the state government now, so, and it's the law that says that you should pay. This is why they're making it a law, so that people can be compelled to do it. So there must be consequence for those who don't do the law.
So Labour should test the law.
I don't even think it should be just Labour, So when the law is made, it becomes a law. So National Assembly is an act. So the government lawyers should test the law. The Labour itself should test
federal government lawyers?
Yes.
Or...
Yeah, anybody can go to court, I'm sure. The Attorney General himself can choose to, just like he has done on the case of local government autonomy. Right. He has gone to court. They can go to court. The Labour themselves can go to court. I think an average Nigerian worker who has a cause, can also go to court. We should stop this idea of state government not being able to pay. That is not the problem of the Nigerian workers. It's not the problem of Nigerian workers. It's the problem of the state that hired the people and is now giving an excuse not being able to pay a living wage. But you see them do all kinds of excessive stuff. The time has come, and I think the leadership of TUC and NLC should keep their eye on the ball. This is the time to get a living wage. The president promised it. And to be fair to him, he seems to be, focused about it.
How much is realistic?
Well, I think that if you look at the table, since and Nigeria is very good with giving out information. we have a table of all the countries, even in Africa. So you have countries in Africa being able to pay $400 minimum wage. There are countries in this continent, $300, $200, and stuff like that. I don't see any reason why Nigeria should do less than $100. Just reasonable.
We keep talking about blocking the ways that these excessive spending is happening. But when we talk about it, it does seem like we're talking from a moralistic standpoint. Oh, your convoys are too many. You have too many PAs and SAs. But as much as those things are wrong and we're able to call them out, right, are they breaking the law when they do that? When they have excessive convoys, when they spend these monies on entertainment, like you said, right, did they break the law? Well,
so very, very good point. There is the moral point of our existence as human beings, and then there is the legal point of it. But I think in this matter, there is a connection, because that is why this is going to be. So, is it possible for us to focus on the laws that enable them to do these things and change those? Yeah. So as opposed to compelling them morally or to using their conscience, because I don't think they're going to listen. I see your point. So that is why some people have been arguing on the need for a true federal constitution. Look, let's just say it as it is. A federation or a federal system of government is where you have a center and federating units. Now, those states that we have, as states, those are not federating units. They're not federating units. They were created by the military. A military president sat up one day and said, yeah, we're not going to have 19 states. Now it's going to be 30 states. Increase it to 36. That was how we got here. So those are not federating units. We need a constitution where Nigerians will sit down and identify the federating units. In a multi-ethnic society, it has to be the peoples, So we have this kind of ethnicity, we identify all of them, and everybody sits at the table and they say that, look, we want to form a federation. And on the basis of that, that is how you determine what the federating units are. And so those are the things that, in terms of your question about the legality of it, we have to go back to a true constitution. That's why I said that, look, one of the things that President Tinubu must do for Nigeria, at the very least, is that he must make sure that Nigeria has a true federal constitution. Many of these states, if they say that they cannot do what states are supposed to do, why are they states?
All right, there's another matter too that we'll talk about, but I'd like to listen to this particular perspective and we will take it from there.
The president on his, as rightly, said, on the day he was sworn in, he said subsidy is gone. President was misunderstood, clearly. The last government, Buhari's government, did not make any provision for subsidy in the 2023 budget. Whether anybody said it or not, subsidy was gone. But the president, in his characteristic style of speaking truth, was to say, look, in the last 2023 budget, there is no provision for subsidy, so subsidy is gone. And I can confirm to you that subsidy is gone. But that doesn't mean that, from time to time, there could be strategic intervention from time to time. In the last 1 decade, there has been no investment in the oil and gas sector. Reason, the PIA took longer than expected to be passed, and so there was no stable governance regulatory framework. When this government came, we've been able to rekindle the confidence of the investing community. And I can assure you that between now and the end of the year, we'll do much more than $20 billion. I can assure you that. And the reason why this is happening is because investors now have confidence that there is a stable regulatory framework. The president himself has signed some executive orders that are targeted at ensuring and assuring the public that, look, Nigeria is ready for business.
Well, that was the Minister of State for Petroleum, Heineken Lokbobiri. So that subsidy narrative has been picked up upon by mainstream media, and which we also try to highlight. But today, different perspectives have also been out there. Take a look at The Guardian, for instance, where the lead story on the front page refers cautious optimism as FG unveils new fiscal deals to revive economy. Now, there's been a statement, though, about this one. Mr. Onunga has tweeted about leaked documents on fiscal policy proposals. He says they are not official. And this is part of this. One of the documents, he says, was titled Inflation Reduction and Price Stability Fiscal Policy Measures Order 2024. He says it's being shared as if it were an executive order signed by President Tinubu. The other is a 65-page draft document with the title Accelerated Stabilization and Advancement Plan, ASAP, which contains suggestions on how to improve the Nigerian economy, and it goes on and on. So, Lalo, this leads us to the question, which was also published in Business Day, about petrol subsidy, how the president, this government is spending some money on petrol subsidy, which you have also come across this document, these reports.
Yes. I mean, so I think that it is, I mean, looking back at the fact that, one had worked in the presidency and I understand exactly how this must feel for people who have to manage public communication. It's a very tough one. I would personally, join my own view to the fact that, yes, the president made a bold move in saying that subsidy is gone. And I don't think there is anybody that will doubt the fact that that is exactly what he wanted to do. And I guess it was done for quite a number of months, really. But I think it is very difficult right now to convince any right-thinking Nigerian that subsidy is not back.
Let me quote Business Day. In fact, their report was, in a surprising turn of events, the federal government has finally admitted Africa's biggest oil-producing country will be spending up to 5.4 trillion naira on oil subsidies in 2024. And it says this comes after months of repeated denials by government officials who insisted there was no subsidies.
Yeah, so it's very difficult for anyone to say now that there is no subsidy. It will just be a blatant lie, a blatant lie. There is subsidy. At some point, maybe NNPC is taking care of under recovery. At some point, look.
Which is the other name they call it.
Exactly. The price at which we are buying fuel at a pump is not even close to the landing. Look, subsidy is back one way or the other. Okay, and I think it's useful for government spokespeople and ministers in particular to try and walk us to the point of how this thing had to be restored. Because indeed, when the president said it in May 29, of course it stopped, for a while, but then it came back.
When did it come back?
Well, it came back at the point when we saw that the prices, that we are being charged in the market does not match with the real prices. And IMF came out, Bloomberg reported it, a lot of international agencies.
But the price of fuel stayed the same.
Exactly, which is why we know that somebody is trying to make up the gap, which is not a bad thing by itself. But it just shows you, and indeed on Sunday at the Channel's TV interview, Mr. Edu lacked the courage to say subsidy is still here. He didn't say that.
He didn't mention it at all.
Yeah, I think Shehu asked him and he said, oh yeah, I mean, this fuel subsidy thing is an ongoing process, an ongoing situation, and he's trying to just manage what is clearly a difficult public communication challenge. But I will suggest to them that, look, you should own up to the fact that subsidy for now is back, but we're going to work our way to take it again. The truth of the matter is that the president removed the subsidy, and there was no subsidy for a while.
So the thing
so it's not a big deal if you have to bring it back for some compelling reasons.
So there are a couple of things there. From the public communication perspective, could it be that having announced it at that point in time, which many have touted and said, look, he's taking the boldest decision nobody tried, nobody took.
Yeah.
And so how are they going to backtrack now and say to the world, well, actually, it's back. And number two, if subsidy is back and they're paying it from several documents circulating, without an official announcement saying we're suspending a certain clause of the PIA. So if they are paying subsidy, are they going to be violating certain laws? Where's the money coming from if it's not been budgeted for?
Well, the part of the act, I think that one can be managed because the law is not made for, we are not made for the law is made for us. That is the easier of the two. I think the more important challenge is how to actually solve this problem on the long term. Again, we must give credit to the fact that the president was bold to say, look, let's remove this thing, as soon as we can.
Yeah, but that will appear to be a knee-jerk approach.
Well,
if it's coming back. And what then is what's the guarantee that there will be a long-term solution? It means these guys would have said, we told you, we've had them by the balls now, so what can they do to us?
Yeah, you're right, and I'm just trying to be, honestly, I'm trying to be sympathetic right now to see how they can come out of this dilemma.
This is going to be one of the hardest things to explain to the Nigerian. Because at the heart of everything that is going on is the fact that the price of everything went up because subsidy was removed.
And then you tell us it's bad.
And then you now tell us it's bad, but the prices have already gone up and they're not coming down. I don't know how they're going to do this communication.
From the stable.
Well, I think that this ASAP plan, the Accelerated Stabilization and Stability Plan that Minister Edu is supposed to be bringing out, I think, if you look at it, a lot of people see quite a bit of hope in that document itself. Now, yes, you're right. A lot of people also think that it's 1 year late. That this is the kind of stuff that you should have put before the president, before he made that subsidy is gone kind of stuff. And you are right, Kayla. Yeah, people have suffered, by the fact that, now Naira has depreciated and all kinds of stuff, and it has led to hardship. Okay? But what I think is important now is for the government to try to build trust from the ruins. And because that's life. You build from the ruins. So you say that, look, this is what we wanted to do because it is the right thing to do. And we tried to do this for a number of months. Now, we couldn't continue because of this. Yeah, of course, people will say, hey, why didn't you know before? Yes, and they must take responsibility for that. But going forward, it's important to level up, to come clean to the Nigerian people so that whatever else you're going to talk about, they can believe you. Credibility of the president and credibility of the administration is at a very questionable point. And what they say and do going forward is how we know how they will resolve the credibility crisis.
You know, one of the things that goes with this conversation, Mr. Akande, is that we're only always looking at the federal government. When we began the conversation this morning, that's one of the things that Kela mentioned, the fact that more and more people are giving a little more attention to the states, which you call, the federating units. And of course, you have also hinted at the possibility that maybe some of them are actually not viable enough to stand on their 2 feet. But you see, when we talk about government, a lot of times we give attention to the federal government. But the people live in the states, and the effect of whatever policy, be it the federal policies or state policies, hit the people directly. Do you see a role in terms of communication? Do you see a role for the states, the state governments themselves in this particular matter? We're talking about food earlier on, before we came back on air, my colleagues and I in the studio. We're talking about the fact that the logistics of food from Kano or from anywhere in the villages to the major cities, those are the issues that increase the cost of production, the logistics of it. But hey, who is talking about that? And everyone is going to talk about, okay, the dollar doesn't affect the price of tomato. Of course it does. So do you see a role for state governments in communicating with the people to ameliorate the pains, at least to get some buy-in for government, be it federal or state?
Thank you so much, Ayo, for that question. And you are entirely right. People live in the states, and a lot of the attention ought to be on the state governments and the state governors. And I think we are beginning to shift that narrative, not as much as we ought to, but I think it's beginning to shift. Now, what normally happens is that, from my own experience in the presidency, the president, federal government wants to do what is right in terms of getting the states to take responsibility. So, for instance, President Buhari also pushed the idea of local government autonomy, and then the states went to court. And then, the governors will come and say, no, that can't happen, and then everybody mellows. Now, this president has also started the same thing, and the Attorney General is in court in terms of, the financing of local government economy. Local government autonomy, I'm sorry. Now, the important thing is to stay on course on that matter. I think this administration has shown that it wants the governors to show more responsibility. Clearly, last week when he was meeting leaders from Arewa, I think the president said it again, that look, talk to the governors. A lot of this responsibility is with the governors. And that's why we need to keep hammering on that point. They have resources. They can do internal generated revenue. And in spite of the fact that we have had a significant portion increase in their allocation from the federal government because of the fact that there is now more cash coming in, we haven't seen in many instances that kind of impact in the life of the people, in what the states are delivering. And so it's important to keep an eye on the states and to hold them responsible more and more. You are entirely right, and I agree entirely that we have to keep our eye on the ball and ensure that the state governments do what they're supposed to do. But I must also restate that, look, if we are very serious, and we ought to be very serious, most of those states cannot qualify to be federating units. How did we get to 36 states, by the way? We got Akande, to the 36
just a quick
states
one. Right now, that's where we are.
Yeah.
We are 36 states according to the Constitution and according to the number of governors that we have. So one other question before we go for you. Do you see any significant collaboration between the federal government in terms of its policies and the states? When the president makes a pronouncement, of course, these things will dissipate in states or affect people directly in the states. Do you see a collaboration between the federal government and the states?
Well, so there are structures established for that collaboration to take place. Now, whether that is being done to the optimal level is a different conversation altogether. And I think that a lot more can be done. Now, what normally happens is that state governors will continue to hide behind the canopy of, oh, it's the federal government, oh, it's the president. You know, and that's why I said that those of us who are in the who are outside, especially in the media, the CSOs, the people, we must continue to raise and call attention to the responsibilities of the state governors. You know, they are clearly, for the most part, trying to avoid, and they find a very easy way to do it by just pushing the buck back to the federal government. And to my point, I think if we're going to have a new constitution, Ayo, I believe that we have to look at the issue of federating units. We cannot have a federating unit by a decree of a military. If that is what we have now, yes, it is. But who says we can't change it? We should change it. And that's why the quest for a new federal constitution is such a big deal. Because we cannot continue to have the people have the short end of the stick because of these structural imbalances and the irresponsibilities of some of our political leaders.
Well, just going through Mr. Ononuga's tweet, what he says, look, yes, the president received a copy on Tuesday. One of it was written draft. None of them came from official channels. And these matters are ongoing. They should cease from discussing it. And then that quote where he says, look, that which the government is trying to hide is news. That famous definition of what is news.
Mr. Ononuga taught us how to scoop news stories when he was the editor.
He used to be one of us.
Yeah, I mean, he was my editor-in-chief in the news. If he were the editor and I got this story, he will be giving me all the thumbs up for it. It's called a scoop. So this story is out.
I cannot give a thumbs down then. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much.
For the former presidential aide. Well, that is the show today. Tell us what you make of all of this. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain Uso. Goodbye.
I'm Kayla Magwa. Have a great day ahead.
And I'm Akande. Make it a productive one.